iPad Pro 9.7 versus iPad Pro 10.5. These two tablets look very similar in design, but one is new and one is a little bit old. Both support the Apple Pencil and both are extremely thin. But you might be asking yourself, should I upgrade from a 9.7 or should I buy a 9.7 or an iPad 10.5? We're gonna find out in this video coming up right now. Let's go. So welcome to this iPad Pro 9.7 versus iPad Pro 10.5 comparison video, and we're going to begin here with the durability. So the first thing you're going to notice between these two tablets is that they're pretty much identical in the build. The aluminum on the back feels just about the same on both of these devices, and we see the same design in the speaker grills, the 4-channel stereo speakers here. So this is still a pretty clean design here for the 10.5. Now we also notice that we do have that camera bump which remains on that new 12 megapixel camera from the iPhone 7 included in the iPad 10.5, but it does protrude just a little bit more than the 9.7 edition. So do take that into account if you are deciding to upgrade or buy one of these two, that the 10.5 has a bigger camera bump. Now the power buttons remain in the same location, so a very familiar experience, and we also retain the 3.5mm headset jack for the iPad Pro 10.5. In addition to that, we do have the connectors for our smart keyboards and stuff like that, which also remain here, making this for a more productive tablet to replace maybe a PC depending on your needs. Now at the bottom we do see the same lightning ports, but the iPad Pro 10.5 supports up to USB 3 speeds through a lightning adapter, and we also do see the fingerprint scanners in the same location, although the 10.5 has 2nd gen Touch ID. Up at the top we see the 7 megapixel camera on the 10.5 and the 5 megapixel front facing camera on the 9.7. Both of these tablets are just about as thin as one another at 6.1 millimeters, so about the same there. But talking about those displays, here's where we see a little bit of a change. We have the ProMotion 120 Hz display on the iPad Pro 10.5, which also receives 600 nits of brightness versus a little bit over 400 on the iPad Pro 9.7. So this is going to be very noticeable if you're using these tablets directly outdoors, but both get extremely dim and bright. So I think you're going to be happy with both, but I would choose the 10.5 if you're looking for the absolute best display you can get on a mobile tablet today. Now they both do support Apple Pencil, but the iPad Pro supposedly has a lower latency factor, meaning that graphic designers and artists out there, you probably will prefer to go with the 10.5 for its low industry leading latency on the Apple Pencil here. So you can see it just looks a little bit better to the touch. It's a little hard to see this behind camera. It's really a feel thing. You're gonna have to feel this out for yourself in stores, but I would go with the 10.5 if you're looking for the most precision you can get out of the Apple Pencil. And another area where the iPad Pro 9.7 and 10.5 are also very good is in browsing, but the 10.5 just ekes it out with a 120 Hz refresh rate. This is another area where the ProMotion display does look a little bit better. So just scrolling through articles, websites, and stuff like that, and even pinch to zooming does just render just a little bit better here on the iPad Pro 10.5. And you just have to see this in store to believe your eyes are seeing. It's really incredible what Apple has done here with the 120 Hz refresh rate. There's no other tablet like this on the market. And even opening things like Control Center, navigating UI, you can see I'm slowing the video down here. You can see it is faster. That comes down to the A10X chipset in the Pro, but also that refresh rate is making it look a little bit snappier as well. It's not just the chipset. So definitely a speed enhancement. I think video editors, photo editors, and just people who love gaming on their iPad are absolutely going to enjoy this. You're gonna have to have an eye for detail to see this, but I think even most everyday people can notice this. Now 264 pixels per inch on both 9.7 and 10.5 inch iPads remain. So super sharp true tone displays here, which adjust to the ambient lighting conditions in the room you're in. So whether you're watching videos here on the iPad Pro 9.7, such as the ones on this Nick Ackerman channel, or you're reading books or articles or websites on either of these iPads, both are going to be great, but I think you get a little bit of a smoother experience for the 10.5. Even playing games looks a little bit better with the reduced bezels on the new iPad Pro 10.5. So take that into account when playing games, but the 9.7 is more portable. Now, in terms of performance, the iPad Pro 9.7 was never a slow tablet and actually very fast. Even to this day, it's extremely fast with the A9X CPU and 2 gigs of RAM. This thing was just a monster in performance no matter what you thrown at it. But Apple has said to improve the speed by up to 50% on the iPad Pro 10.5, and it is kind of felt, but I haven't seen it too much in just everyday basic tasks. But you can see that just a little bit smoother across the board, a little bit faster, and this chip is a monster. It benches higher than most laptops. It will outbench older MacBooks as well as some entry-level MacBooks, maybe even the MacBook Air. It might outbench that as well. So this is an extremely fast little tablet, and if you can make this work, I think it's not going to be that easy to do until iOS 11 as your PC replacement. This might be a good option here. You can see 5057 on the multi-core for the iPad and 9208 for the multi-core on the iPad Pro 10.5. So an extremely big update in terms of the performance, which is nice to see when you are going to increase the price over $50 here for the iPad Pro 10.5. So rest assured, whether you get the iPad Pro 9.7 or you're upgrading to the 10.5, both are monsters in performance. But if you do want the future-proof device that's going to handle iOS updates further into the future, go with the 10.5 edition. Now, these also both run iOS 10.3.2 right now, which is making the iPad Pro 10.5 a maybe a hold-off type of device right now, because it's really going to improve with iOS 11. You're going to see very similar UI elements such as the widgets on both of these iPads. Everything is going to look exactly the same in terms of your software, all the way down to the control centers. You don't see that new control center yet here in the iPad Pro 10.5. So definitely a little bit of annoying that you don't have iOS 11 here yet on the 10.5, but it should be coming this fall. Now, in terms of the camera department, that is the 7 megapixel on the front and 12 megapixel iSight cameras on both the rears of the 6S for the 9.7 and the iPhone 7 for the 10.5. So both are extremely good cameras here. Both shoot in 4K on both of these tablets, so I think you're going to enjoy the picture quality. In the real world, I noticed that the iPad Pro 10.5 does let in a little bit more light, but their camera settings are exactly the same, and I don't think most people are shooting that many pictures with their tablet, but if they are, you're going to appreciate the little bit of improvement that comes with the iPad Pro 10.5, but this is not a drastic improvement in my personal opinion here. Now, in terms of the settings, you also can shoot in the same slow motion rates as well as record video and up to the same resolution. So again, the cameras are very, very similar here. Now, the front-facing cameras do the same thing. 5 megapixel on the front, 7 megapixel on the 10.5, and both shoot pretty decent photos from the front as well, very similar to the iPhone 6s and 7 respectively. Now, on the battery life, I did notice that the 10.5 does have a larger watt-hour battery than the 9.7, and it shows. It does last a little bit longer than the iPad Pro. I got about 14 hours with the 10.5, where I got about 11 to 12 hours with the 9.7. So definitely a little bit of an increase in the battery department, but remember, both of these iPads are going to take hours to charge, excruciatingly slow, so put these on charge overnight. Now, these do have very good speakers at the bottom. They are 4-channel stereo speakers that was introduced with the iPad Pro, and they sound incredible. I'm not going to show you a sample here. Let me know if you want to see a separate audio test, but just know that both of these sound incredible, about the same, a little bit of a slight improvement on the 10.5. So speakers nearly the same here on these small tablets. Now, Touch ID has been improved for the iPad Pro 10.5, which now brings a second generation Touch ID, and it shows. It's basically like what we had on the iPhone 6, and then we went to the 6S with the second gen Touch ID. It's very noticeable. I don't know why iPad didn't already have this, but now it is here, so that's a nice update as well. Apple has also said to included a wider keyboard for the iPad Pro 10.5, and you can see right here it is a little bit wider, and I found touch typing to be quite a joyous experience on the iPad Pro 10.5. So definitely an update there, and I would recommend the 10.5 for a better keyboarding experience. So iPad Pro 9.7 versus 10.5, which is the better tablet? I think it's obvious that the 10.5 is the better tablet, but how much better is it? Does it warrant an upgrade? And I don't think it actually does, unless you absolutely need the power and you absolutely need that new nice ProMotion display. I think most iPad Pro users at 9.7 inches could hold off one more year on the iPad to see if they bring some new innovations to this series of products. But the 10.5 definitely brings a very great display. It's very smooth. At 120 hertz is a feel thing. The latency factor, artists, graphic designers are gonna enjoy the iPad Pro 10.5, but it still feels like you're writing digitally. It's still not like you're writing on a piece of paper here, even in 2017. But both of these are great tablets. I do recommend getting the iPad Pro 10.5 if you can hold off till iOS 11. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, go ahead and click that like button for me. It would be appreciated much. Leave your feedback, comments, questions, concerns down below. Nick here helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.